of an incident there showing the beating of Tyree Nichols. It was another example of an unarmed black man killed by police officers. Joining our conversation this morning and to continue our coverage about this is our racial equity expert, Dr. Rosemarie Allen. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about something that was something we heard about in the initial moments of this video that was released. It was traumatizing for a lot of people to watch this. One big observation was these were 5 black officers who were involved. And a lot of people have been asking the question, does this impact departments across the country when they say they're trying to solve these problems by diversifying their departments and bringing in other black officers to help within this specific job?
Yes, well, definitely the efforts to diversify policing, to diversify law enforcement is very, very important. We know that black officers, black and Hispanic officers, are less likely to kill black men, they have fewer arrests, and they also have fewer stops. But we have to understand that that diversity is addressing the symptom of the issue. Without addressing the inherent racism that takes place in law enforcement agencies all over the country, we will not be able to make strides. When an officer enters a system that's deeply rooted in systemic racism, then they're more likely to develop the same biases that's upheld by that system. So it must be a twofold process.
Right, we can't look at this one case and say, well, it clearly didn't work in this situation. You're right, this is a symptom of a bigger cause, of a bigger root cause there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we also have to look at the history of policing and law enforcement in our country. Today's policing evolved from slave patrols. And slave patrols were developed to hunt down, capture, and return enslaved humans to their masters. They were also created to terrorize enslaved people, to deter revolts, and also to discipline the enslaved, to show that they had dominion over their bodies. And these slave patrols were funded by local governments, and they really gave white people, white officers, dominion and power over black bodies with no accountability for how they were treated. So when we look at policing today, we have to remember that foundation, because racism is in the very fabric and brick and mortar of modern day policing. And when you look at the parallels, we see slave patrols parallel to domestic terrorist organizations and even current day policing. So we have to look at that history and address that history in order to really move forward, or these things will happen regardless of the race of the officer.
Dr. Allen, I want to ask you from your perspective as an expert, are you afraid, because there are a lot of departments that are doing really good work to diversify and to stop incidents like what we witnessed there in Memphis. Do you worry, though, that people will use this one case as a scapegoat to say this clearly isn't the problem we should be fixing?
Well, actually, we're seeing that. So we're seeing that people are saying, okay, well, black officers are killing black men, so it's not racism. It's racism. It is. And because same race people are engaging in these acts doesn't mean it's not racism. We have to look at internalized racism, but more importantly, we must look at systemic and institutional racism. When you walk into an environment where these values and sentiments and biases are upheld and you are not intentional about addressing them, then the people who are within that environment will develop the biases and racism of that environment.
Dr. Allen, I know we are just touching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this conversation. We're going to have you back and keep this as it evolves and monitor this very closely, but thank you for helping us get started.
And thank you so much for addressing this issue.
Absolutely, Dr. Allen. We appreciate your expert advice as always. Let's give you a live look outside.